I know it's all you've got to just be strong. And it's a fight just to keep it together, together.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another episode of It's a Family Affair, the podcast for families by families. My name is Carrie, as everybody knows, and I am a member of the Mothers Union of St. George's Anglican Church here in the beautiful Cayman Islands. That is not the Cayman Islands, by the way. With me are two members of the St. George's Anglican Church. First, who also happen to be members of the Mothers Union. First, we have Reverend Annalise Wisdom, spiritual advisor to the Mothers Union, and Sister Dabrika Rollins, who you all know, who is a member of the Care Ministry here at St. George's. Ladies, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
It's good to be here.
Definitely.
So, as many of you know, if you watched our last episode, and why wouldn't you have? During the month of May, the Mothers Union is sharing a series of short videos with information on mental health that we hope will be useful to you and your families. The theme this year for Child Month is Act Now, Stand Against Child Abuse and Exploitation. And today, our guest will look at a question that is very relevant to what we're dealing with these days: prayer versus counseling. I am a Christian. My child does not have mental health issues. So, in our first episode, Sister Dabrika took us through the differences between mental health and mental illness. And if you missed that, just click on the link below. And last week, Dr. Janelle informed us as to how adverse childhood experiences, otherwise known as ACEs, contribute to our physical and mental health and well being or lack thereof. And so, today in the hot seat, my first question is going to go to Reverend Annalise. Can you summarize? And I don't think you can, because it can't be summarized because it's such a all-encompassing topic.
Mm,
The purpose of prayer, and
mm.
how does that aid us in our mental health and mental well-being?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Sister Karen. I appreciate the question. I guess I'll start off by saying that prayer works. I've seen amazing things happen and have been brought to tears by the power of prayer, right? But prayer is not meant to bring an immediate or even a quick resolution to what might be ailing us. So, say, just pray to someone experiencing a mental health crisis or any kind of crisis really is ultimately unhelpful. Prayer is not magic, right? God isn't a genie that we rub whenever we need something. Uh, Prayer is a means to connect with the God who loves us. At its best, I would say it is a daily conversation with God where we listen as well as speak, and where God listens as well as speaks. And at its deepest, prayer is communion with God, where we become aware of God's constant presence with us. And we may even just sit in silence with God. And it is that connection that can be particularly helpful at times when we're feeling disconnected due to a mental health challenge. And connecting with others in prayer, right? The community, God's hands and feet here in the world, helps us to bond together as community. And I'll say on that front, that gathered community, right? The church, and particularly a church that is equipped to support those with mental health challenges, that community can really play a very significant role in facilitating mental health recovery by journeying with persons in supportive ways during the process of recovery. And I guess the last thing I'll mention at this point is that pouring out our hearts to God, right? Lamenting, which is a form of prayer, uh, to a God whom can more than hold the entire range of our emotions, and fostering communities of faith that provide that space for us to give voice to all our emotions, This allows persons who are suffering to feel seen and validated.
Ooh, a mouthful there. So that was a mouthful, Reverend Annalise. And I have to tell you that, you know, hearing that God is not a genie and that, prayer is not magic. Sister Debrica, coming off the back of what Reverend Annalise just said, can you just summarize for us how mental ill health and mental illness, and how sometimes even when we pray, we may also need to seek professional help to help us in our journey to mental health?
Okay, I want to start by saying it is so unfortunate that so many Christians believe that they or their children can't have mental health challenges or illnesses because they have faith, right? And they believe that they can pray everything away. Bear in mind that there's an entire book in the Bible called Lamentations, right? But although the words mental health, mental challenges, mental illness, depression may not appear in the Bible, there are many instances of mental health challenges, symptoms being displayed. And so I don't believe that praying and counseling should be mutually exclusive. They can work hand in hand, right? Mental health challenges can cause sadness, tearfulness, emptiness, hopelessness, irritability, sleep disturbances, tiredness, low self-esteem, worthlessness, suicidal ideation, and even physical aches and pains. And we see all of these symptoms being represented in the Bible. Right? And while prayer is important because it helps to cultivate a deeper relationship with God, and it can reduce stress and anxiety by promoting a positive outlook, right? Because we know that this life is temporary and we know that there will come a time when God will return and set everything right. But at the same time, prayer doesn't necessarily provide us with the practical tools and techniques that we need to address our mental and emotional challenges. And that's where therapy comes in, especially evidence-based therapy, where we're not just using your personal experience, but we're learning from the experiences of others, right? And by accessing therapy, we can be provided with the tools and techniques to improve our coping skills, to promote our overall well-being, improve self-awareness, and emotional regulation. So they're not mutually exclusive. Let's use prayer as well as therapy and counseling, because a lot of times our mental challenges or mental illness, depression, for example, can be circumstantial, but it can be a result of neurological factors. And you can't pray away your neurological factors, right?
Thank you very much for that. Whew. Just Reverend Annalise, I'm going to put you back on the hot seat. And to what you said previously, are there any issues that you can think of with Christians, and I'm speaking specifically to Christian parents, with seeking the assistance of mental health professionals when it comes to caring for the mental health of their children?
No issues, in my view. I mean, in the same way that you, as a Christian parent, I imagine, would take your child to a pediatrician if he or she is suffering from a physical ailment, you would be encouraged to seek the help of a mental health professional if your child is suffering from some sort of mental health challenge, or, to use the appropriate language, languishing mental health. Right? I mean, we were all involved in training recently where we saw that priests openly shared about their decisions to seek the assistance of mental health professionals. Right? In fact, the former Archbishop of Canterbury indicated that he was suffering from depression and shared that he had sought and was seeking the assistance of mental health professionals. So I think, as Sister Debrica alluded to earlier, while we continue to lean into our relationship with God and embrace the spiritual practices that draw us closer to God. And even as we trust that God can and will ultimately fully restore us, God has gifted people with the knowledge and skill to help us live fuller lives now in the present. And we should take advantage of the medications and therapies that are available to us, even as we continue with our spiritual practices. And just to say that when community faith leaders are open about mental health issues and the help that is available to address them, I think this is a really powerful thing. It is powerful because it normalizes the unspeakable. It breaks down stigma and it removes the shame that still surrounds this topic.
Ladies, thank you so much. You know, as both of you were speaking, one thing that stood out to me, and it's taken from today's sermon given by Sister Aria, where she said, not because you're not seeing a physical mark,
Yes.
doesn't mean that I am not hurting.
Yeah.
And so I want to end this discussion with that particular thought. Not because you don't see a physical mark on your child does not necessarily mean that your child is not hurting.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you once again for taking the time out to discuss what is without a doubt a very complex and sensitive topic. In the meantime, if you or someone you know is having a mental health crisis, please call 911 if you're in the Cayman Islands or 119 if you are in Jamaica. If you are in need of prayerful support or just a place where you can talk with someone or just be for a little while, please feel free to contact the care ministry of St. George's Anglican Church at 67 Quartz Road on the following dates and following times: Mondays 10 to 12 noon and 5 to 7 p.m., Wednesdays from 11 to 1 p.m., Fridays from 10 to noon, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to noon. If you wish to schedule a time outside of these hours, please feel free to call us on 938-9277 to book an appointment. And remember, neither you or your children are alone. Have a great day and thank you.
And you know you're stronger than you know.